I'll you first. How about that?
Sounds good.
Perfect. Let me sure this is good. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Excellent. I love hearing that. My name is Kelsey Cross. I'm the education manager here at LeMay, America's Car Museum. I'm so happy that all of you came here today to support Emy, and I'm so happy that I found Emy and that she was willing to come here and do a talk for us. I'm always looking for folks to give talks at the museum, so if you know of anyone else who would be interested, please, please, please reach out to me. I would love to hear that. Before we get started, though, I know you all are here to listen to her talk and not me. I do have a couple of things I want to go over, but I promise I'll be really quick about it. The museum acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of the Puyallup people. We gratefully honor and respect their stewardship of this land throughout the generations. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of Indigenous people of this land. You also might have noticed that we have Family Steam Day going on upstairs. So Family Steam Day happens every third Saturday of the month from 11 to 3. It is completely free. It is provided by Tacoma Creates Grant, as is this presentation as well. And we have a different theme every month too. So this month's theme is Sail Away. So we are learning all about buoyancy, and we're creating boats to test them and see if they actually float in the water. So if you would like to do something like that upstairs, you're more than welcome to. It is for kids of all ages. If you want to see a little bit more about some of the programs that we offer throughout the year at the museum, go to our website, which is americascarmuseum.org. Click on the events tab and events calendar, and then it'll take you all to that. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Emy, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her journey becoming a racer and a mechanic. Thank you so much again for coming to be with us today. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Kelsey. Fun fact about boats, I actually used to be a varsity sailing team member before I started racing cars. That was kind of my
all the forms of transportation. I love it.
Introduction to racing. Yeah, very competitive. I get it from my mom. So, hi everyone. I'm Emy Kissick. I just wanted to start off saying thank you to LeMay Car Museum for hosting this talk. Express my gratitude for my season sponsor, Hydraulic Solutions, and my parents, most of all, for being my greatest supporters. And I would also love to hear some feedback, some critique, lots of questions at the end of the presentation. There'll be plenty of time for questions. This is my first time actually doing a presentation of this style, other than school presentations. And just a critique, I'm actually 17 now. I'm no longer 16. When we started planning this talk, I was 16. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be 16 forever. And then that didn't happen. But let's get started. All dads want to teach their children lessons, install some wisdom in their young ones. And my lesson came in the form of a Datsun 280Z, a very rusty Bondomobile. And, you know, my dad, he knew that this addiction that he got me hooked on long ago, buying unnecessary project cars and mechanics and machines, anything that runs, he knew would be the greatest financial hurdle of my life. So he thought he would teach me what not to do early and let me spend all of my money on Datsun 280Z number 1, the very rust bucket that he thought I would never get my money back out of. And well, that was Dad's hope, but it backfired for him. And I made $500 on the Bondomobile. I was very pleased with myself. Just imagine this, 14-year-old me, giddy with excitement, clenching my hard-earned dog walking money and going to buy my first project car. And I sold the first 280Z, and I kept buying them, and Dad was really the victim of this story. I'm sorry, Dad. Please don't kick me out. I love you. But he lost space in his shop to whatever project I was currently working on. And I didn't come from a family of race car drivers. I never grew up racing go-karts, as most race car drivers do. But I did have a dad and mom who was always supportive of my love for mechanics and my love for sports cars. And so that really started with this first car that I have much gratitude for because it taught me a lot. Dad secretly wanted me to get a Chevy pickup. That didn't happen. At first, my mom did not see the appeal of a rusty Bondomobile that was stinky and greasy, and they call it a Datsun. So she saw my dad and I having a ball every night in the shop, working late on project cars. And, you know, she felt a little excluded. She wanted a project car of her own, go on Amazon, order one, maybe 2-day delivery. Well, no, that didn't happen. But the persistent pleading of younger me 15-year-old me wanted her to buy a car for me to start driving when I was doing my driver's ed, and I was going to be 16 soon. I was going to have a license, and well, that led us to the actual Amazon for cars, Bring a Trailer, and we accidentally won a bid on the most pristine 300ZX I have ever seen. And yes, it was an accident. I promise it was an accident. We didn't mean to, Dad. Sorry. Add another car to the garage, but we placed a bid and walked away expecting to just get bid up. You know, it was the last 5 minutes, and we didn't get bid up, and we ended up with this amazing car. And I now call it my forever car. I love this car. But our shared love in Nissan Z's led us to it, and I would never regret it, because 2 weeks later, cruising with the T-tops off became our favorite pastime. I mean, look at how beautiful this interior is. I mean, I feel like it's very timeless. I think the only thing that dates it is the cassette player, but I love my Van Halen cassette tape, which was also my mom's in high school. And even though now we have the 300ZX, which I still call my favorite car, I kept buying and selling Datsun 280Zs because that turned out to be a great source of income for 15-year-old me. And I loved working on cars, and I ended up probably screwing over a couple people like, oh, I swear it's not rusty. There's no Bondo in this one. And that happened. But the second 280Z I ended up with was a race car. I bought it from an estate of a man who built the race car, and he passed away. And the sister didn't know anything about the cars, and neither did I. I didn't know anything about race cars, but I ended up, here I am with this SCCA race car. It hadn't raced since 2004. It was completely stripped out. The wiring was custom, and I was very confused. I was like, what do I do with this car? There's no wiring diagrams that tell me how to work on it. Like, it's crusty and it's empty. There's nothing in here. And I didn't see the appeal to this bare necessities car. I'd always driven street cars. I'd never been to a racetrack before. And I started researching race cars, and what is this SCCA thing? I see these stickers everywhere. Sports Car Club America, something like that. And so in my daily blabbering, the prefix race was added to the word car in every second sentence. And safe to say, I was obsessed. I loved this car. I worked on it a lot. I drove it up and down my driveway every chance I got. And I ended up with other 280Zs though. This was the third 280Z I worked on. I bought it as a parts car for the race car because I wanted to turn the race car into a resto mod street type build. That didn't end up happening, but I did end up making a lot of money on this parts car because I did all the body work on it myself, and it had a rear end damage, quarter panel damage, but I did learn a lot from this car. It was really fun to learn how to use a slide hammer and all those tools and weld the things on the metal. I don't remember what they're called, but and pull the metal out. And this time-lapse video is fun to watch because you can slowly see the metal start to pull back out and straighten after years of damage. Lots of Bondo covering that up. That was some of the before and after of some of the work I did on the car, and that was how much Bondo was in the quarter panel. Yeah, if anyone says that their Datsun doesn't have any Bondo in it, I think they're lying. I've had 4 of them, and they've all had Bondo. And then this is the 4th car I bought. I've sold all the other 280Zs since then. I love the race car, I always will, but it was just too much of a project for me because eventually I got into a little something called Spec Miata racing, which we'll talk about next. But my cat, Stormy, is posing for the video here. And, well, if you're bored by now, that was just the start. These are some more things that the 280Z came with. I redid the hubs and bearings, put new rotors on it. There was about 10 gallons of very stinky gas from 2006 in it, which was great. Thank you, previous owner. And then, well, here's the start. January 14th, 2023. The first time I ever set foot on a racetrack. My journey in motorsports began on this day, and with Shannon. She was my first instructor. Special feature right here. For Christmas, just a few weeks earlier, my mom had gotten me a high-performance driving class, a one-day class at Performance Racing School, which is at Pacific Raceways in Kent. And if you don't know, on that fateful day, I found a missing piece of me that I never knew I needed, which was the speed aspect of driving. And getting to put on a helmet, strap into what was, I thought, a real race car, which now I learned was a converted street car, was very exciting for me with my instructor. And I went out on the track and I drove for the first time, and I went home with my face hurting from smiling so much because I was just absolutely excited the whole day. I remember arriving there and I handed the keys. I was 15 years old and I had only ever driven with another person in the car before because I had my permit. And Donna, the owner of Performance Racing School, handed me keys and said, "Here, go pull your car around." And I took the keys and I was like, "Oh, okay." And the car, it was a cold January morning and how do I turn the defrost on? I can't see anything. I'm gonna wreck this car. There's no defrost. Safe to say I learned how to turn the defrost on. Everything was okay. But about 5 driving days later at Performance, and about 3 months, I found myself in my first race pre-grid for my race licensing class. In just 3 short months, I had become a licensed race car driver. I mean, talk about escalation. I had read the whole Ross Bentley Speed Secrets book, which if you haven't heard of, it's an amazing book. I totally recommend. And I had gotten into a race car for a 2-day race licensing class. And on Sunday, at the end of the day, I took a green flag, and then I was the first to take the checkered flag. And I won my race license in school. And that was the moment I knew. I was like, this is going somewhere. I'm going to make this happen no matter how hard it is. I love this. This was my passion. Sometimes people ask me how I did improve so fast. And honest answer, I wasn't trying to improve. I was just enjoying the process of learning, having the time of my life, doing something so fun and joy-filled. I mean, there's nothing that can describe racing and the adrenaline rush that it gives you. Just the perfect corner, the perfect lap, the perfect apex. Everything about it is perfect. I mean, think about something you're good at. It could be a skill, a hobby, a passion. You probably didn't get good at it from trying hard or focusing on the end result. You just enjoyed the process of doing that. That was what racing was for me. But there are always some setbacks. For example, ending up upside down with your coach in the car at Pacific Raceways, which did happen. But no matter how much discouraging of a setback it was, I can always remember that deep fire that kept me pushing for more, and the excitement of the next lap, the next shift, anything more about racing. Well, I'm sure you heard me mention upside down. That really did happen, yes. But it was probably my second or third time in my brand new Spec Miata that I had just gotten, and I just started driving. But it was so easy to get caught up in the ups and downs there was to life and performance. As 15-year-old me hadn't quite learned that sometimes you're gonna have good days and sometimes you're gonna have days that you crash. And that first day of crashing taught me a lot. And it was definitely a hard day. I was devastated. I didn't realize that, there was gonna be a day after and a day after, and there was gonna be a day that you fixed your car, and there was gonna be a day that you got back on track and you put your helmet back on and you weren't afraid anymore. And I think back now and I'm like, wow, that was a fantastic learning moment. Though I'm sure 15-year-old me would have rolled her eyes and said, go away. Thankfully, my gracious mother let me borrow her Spec Miata that she had recently purchased. Of course, when you start racing, your mom wants to go racing with you too. So you should invite her to buy a Spec Miata, and then you can have matching Miatas and go racing together. It was the dream. I am living the dream. And she helped me fix my car, and my car did end up being fixable after being on the roof, which was fun. And I got back on track. And by the end of the summer, in about September, 8 or 9 months of racing, I had learned so much. I had gained so much wisdom. I learned more in those first 8-9 months than I think I've learned in my whole life. I'd met a whole new group of people. I have learned speed, going fast, and that was just amazing. And I also got the amazing opportunity of racing with my mom. I think that racing is the best sport ever, in my biased opinion, because how many sports can you do with your mom racing next to you in her car, and your dad's your number one pit crew? Dad would be racing too, but he doesn't want to. Someone's got to fix the car. And I think there's lots of sports where you can't do that, and I'm really grateful for how the sport has brought my whole family together. I hope everyone gets to experience something like that in their lifetime. This race was from the Pacific Raceways Invitational, which happens in September every year, and Mom and I placed second and third in the vintage class. We chose to race vintage together because there was less cars, and then we just got to lap together, and it was a blast. I totally recommend. Get your mom into racing. Here this is the if cars could talk. If my car could talk right now, which I wish it could, if it won't stop buffering, but this is a lap at Laguna Seca Raceway. I got the opportunity to race at Laguna Seca for the first time this year in June. And this was my first time ever racing here. This is a race start with over 40 cars on it, and I am starting 16th, I believe. If it won't buffer and play, you might get the chance to see the amazing Laguna Seca corkscrew, which you don't already know is the coolest turn in the world. I love it. And I'm actually still driving my mom's car in this video because my car was still broken. Which I know you need to say, get on it and you fix your car, but see if it'll work. I do most of the work on the car myself. My dad does help me with a lot of things, but I am very independent and often ends up with me doing it the wrong way before I ask for help. Which has been like, why isn't this wiring working? So right now we're in grid and we're lining up for the green flag. As we're waiting, the starter stand on the left is going to fly the green. Right now is go time. I pull out looking for a clear space in traffic to pass, but there wasn't one. So in Spec Miata, I go for the bump draft. Bump drafting is basically when you hit the person in front of you on purpose to go faster. It benefits both of us, trust me. I stay on the inside of the corner here because inside passing means you travel less of a radius of the corner. Less distance traveled means faster. Laguna Seca is definitely a track to be respected. If you notice, there's walls on either side of you and there's not very much runoff room. This corner here, turn 6, right there, apex. It's gonna load. Decided to pause at just the right time. I know, heard me talking about it. But that corner is definitely one of my favorite corners, if not the corkscrew, which is the next corner, if you know. There's so much lateral load in the car. Spec Miatas can pull almost 2.5 Gs in a corner on Toyo RR tires. We have a lot of grip and we have very little horsepower. Little horsepower, speaking of it, going up this hill, our RPMs do not increase at all. We are at the same RPM from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. And I am floored right now. But here it is. This is it. That is the corkscrew. I love it. It's my favorite turn on any racetrack. The first time I went through the corkscrew, my stomach just dropped. It is as close to a roller coaster as you can get. This is just the first lap of the race, but going on throughout the race, this red car 23 and I had an amazing battle the whole race, and I ended up getting the pass just on the last lap. And for my first time racing at this racetrack, I was really happy with my finishing position of 12th place, I believe. So I did pass a couple of cars in that race. And I believe my most asked question is, Emy, why did you forget to put gas in your car that one time? Well, no, that was my second most asked question. They know. It's probably, what are your plans for the future? What are your goals? Where are you going? I don't know where I'm going sometimes, but I woke up one day and I heard about this thing called this Mazda Spec MX-5 shootout. And this is an amazing opportunity that I would love to attend. As a Spec Miata racer, I race with Mazda Motorsports, not directly, but as a contingency racer through many of their amazing programs. And Mazda has many stepping stones to the next higher level. Some of those include the Spec MX-5 cars, which are the black cars, and then the MX-5 Cup cars, which are the newest Miatas, or they call them MX-5s now. And they race with IMSA, and Spec MX-5 still races with SCCA and some amateur levels, with kind of a cross between professional and amateur racing. It's a very nice middle ground. I'm so new to driving. I'm still new to public speaking. Like I said, I started in January of 2023 and it's already snowballed from here. But I'm always looking for the next stepping stone to the higher level. And that's where the Spec MX5 shootout comes in. The shootout is an event where 30 nominees are narrowed down to 12 attendees to attend the shootout. These people are chosen by Mazda to attend. You have to submit a video of yourself public speaking, which is why I'm practicing here. And you also get to attend this event where they give you a car to drive and they coach you for 3 days. They tell you like, this is what you could do better. They coach you on marketing partnerships, sponsorships. They coach you on your driving aspects, your racecraft, everything to do with racing to become a well-rounded racer. Because race car driving isn't just who's the fastest in the car, it's also who's the most professional out of the car. This is the photo from the 2023 shootout with the podium winners. As you can tell, the top 3 had very big checks with very big contingency winners to scholarships to go racing. I think first place scholarship was over $10,000, I believe. And then the top finishing female also gets a scholarship. The scholarships change from year to year. I don't know exactly what the scholarships are going to be this year, but top finishing female last year, I believe, won $13,000. And of course, one of my goals for this year is to attend this event. It's at Carolina Motorsports Park, and it is 3 days long, and they put you in a car to drive if you get to go, which would be awesome. And you get your own Mazda suit, and it's a very cool event. And if I don't go this year, I'm always shooting for it next year. So enough about me. Let's talk about you guys. How many of all have driven at a track event before? Driven on track? Yes, a few. How many of you would like to try driving on the track now that you've seen my presentation? I really hope some people would like to drive on the track now. I hope I've inspired at least one of you. Share the joy. And if you ever want to try high performance driving, here's how you would do it. If you live in Tacoma, here in Tacoma, or really anywhere in Western Washington or Northern Oregon, you're close to 3 major road racing tracks on the West Coast. Number 1 being my personal favorite and my home track, I'm a little biased, Pacific Raceways. Number 2 is the Ridge Motorsports Park. It's in Shelton, which is really close to our capital city, Olympia, close to where I live. And then number 3 is Portland International Raceway in Portland, Oregon. For a lot of newer drivers, I would totally recommend Performance Racing School at Pacific Raceways. It's where I started driving, and they have the most in-depth programs, and they're safe and professional, and you get a coach in the car with you. And the coolest thing about their one-day high-performance driving is you can bring your street car. You could bring a Prius. I've seen Rivian pickups. I've seen Subaru Outbacks. I've seen Ferraris and Lamborghinis. We have a cool all carbon fiber Praga R1 that comes, which is very cool. And so there's a big difference in some of the cars that come, but the thing is like it's open to anyone. You can come and do a one-day high performance. They put a coach in the car with you. They teach you how to drive on the racetrack. They also teach you car control skills such as, cone courses, slalom. Don't hit Timmy the cone. They have names. As an instructor there, they're our friends. We love our cones. And you can bring your street car, like I said, but another great racing school option is ProDrive Racing School in Portland International Raceway. If you're closer to Oregon, that's another great option. I've also done some of their courses. It's very similar structure where they put an instructor with the car with you. I like Pacific Raceways better than Portland. Portland is completely flat. It's just a flat racetrack. There's no blind corners. Pacific is really fun because there's a lot of elevation changes, and it's a very old historic track, and it's really interesting and fun to drive. So if you've never driven at Pacific before, I definitely recommend it as a bucket list track to drive. And our third racetrack, the Ridge. Fun fact about the Ridge, it was actually designed by the same man who designed Laguna Seca. Super cool. As I've driven both, I can definitely tell there's a few similarities in it. I like Laguna better personally, but the Ridge is also a really fun track to drive, and it's very safe. It has a lot of runoff room. The Ridge does not have a resident driving school, unlike Portland or Pacific, but it does have a lot of different companies that drive out of there, like Hooked on Driving, Turn 2, and SCCA Track Night in America, which I featured on my slides because I drove in there most recently, and it was really fun. If you want to become a licensed race car driver, like I did, You can do like 5 driving days and become a licensed race car driver, which is crazy to me. That's what I did. Performance Racing School has a really amazing race licensing school, like I talked about. Doing my first mock race and getting to do it in like a safe environment where I knew all my classmates and I knew my coaches and instructors was just the coolest experience ever. ProDrive also has a really cool racing school that I recommend too. I haven't done it myself, but if you're closer to Oregon, it's very convenient. Okay, and here's the important part. If you ever want to sign up for a track day, a race, autocross, if you want to be a volunteer for any of the racing events, go to this little website. It's called motorsportsreg.com. Motorsportsreg is basically where you can find the signups for almost every track day in the Northwest. The racing schools have all of their track days on Motorsportsreg, and as a calendar events, you can choose from what track you want to be at to what type of event. And it's a really great resource if you're looking into getting into racing. Okay, well, I hope someone liked that presentation. I like talking about myself. If anyone is interested in a sponsorship opportunity, feel free to come talk to me. I have my email on the next slide. Feel free to email me. Feel free to check out the race car or my social media, which is Emy Kissick on Instagram. And the race car is out front, ready to pose for some photos. If there's any kids who want to sit in the car, I don't see any kids in here, but anyone who's shorter than me basically can totally feel free to sit in the driver's seat, make race car noises. I know I still do that frequently. I'm not responsible if you get stuck in the race car. It is a fixed seat. It is very short. I'm not cutting you out of the race car if you get stuck. I'll just have to take you with me to my races. And also, let's have some time for some questions, some feedback. I'd love to hear any comments. And again, thank you to LeMay Car Museum for this presentation, and thank you to my season sponsors, Hydraulic Solutions. And thank you to my mom and dad for supporting me throughout this journey. Thank you. Thank you. For someone who hasn't done a lot of public speaking, you are
Oh yeah, very good. When you went to Laguna Seca and you got your start spot, did you have to qualify for that?
Yes, we did qualify. My Saturday race at Laguna Seca, I qualify in the morning and then I race in the afternoon. And that's a general race weekend schedule is mostly like that. I actually blew the sound limit. So Laguna has a very strict sound limit because they're kind of more of an urban area. There's a lot of people who don't like how loud the racetrack is. I mean, why would you move next to a racetrack if you didn't like the racetrack? But I did go over the sound limit, which we didn't expect because we had just put a new muffler on my car. But it could have been a glitch in their system. It could have just been my car being extra loud one lap. I don't know. Maybe I put the throttle down a little harder. But I blew sound limit. And so if you blew sound limit in qualifying, you don't get your qualifying time. And so I qualified starting last in the Saturday race, and I worked my way up the fleet, which was really fun, especially at a track I hadn't had much experience at. But on Sunday, I had a normal qualifying in the morning. I remember we were working through some electrical bugs with the car. These cars always have problems, which Miatas are actually really good about braking. If out of all race cars, they don't brake that much. But I did qualify. I qualified 16th and I finished 12th. So 4 cars. I was happy with that.
And practice on Friday? Do you get practice day on Friday?
Yes, we went to a test day on Friday. Yeah. It was really fun. I am definitely looking forward to my next time at Laguna Seca. I have a lot more practice to do and a lot more improvement to do.
Works for Laguna Seca. I've heard that if you do it right, the car is pretty much stuck to the pavement. Is that true?
It feels like it wants to fly. Like you feel like you're going over this hill, like you kind of come down and then it goes up and down again. But the cars are so heavy and they have so much lateral grip. It's hard to tell from the video, but the angle, the camber of the corner, there's so much camber in that corner. The car, there's no way it could slip out. And you drive right on that curbing, almost all the way over the curbing, and you just shoot right down the hill. And the car is loaded up. It has so much grip. It's actually better when the car has more weight on it because it keeps more friction on the asphalt, less likely to slip. And it was a very fun. It's my favorite corner on any racetrack. Anyone else? Perfect.
Okay. Now that you've done it for like 2 years, what would you tell yourself at the beginning?
Oh, that is a really good question. At the beginning, I was very nervous a lot, but I was also having a very fun time. And I think I got a little bit too competitive. I'm a very competitive person, you can't tell. And I would have just told my earlier self to just slow down. You're doing fine. It's all gonna work out. Especially after my first crash, ending up upside down in my car, I was a little freaked out by that. But you know, it's really, racing is a very patient sport, and so you don't want to be patient. You know, you feel like you should be like going as fast as possible and running nonstop, but racing is a lot slower than it seems. It's a very patient sport, and it rewards the calm people.
So how do you name your cars? I know you name your
Oh,
cars.
Shannon knows this. Shannon knows there's names. So my first car ever, the green Spec Miata, we'll go back to a picture of that. Her name was Lizzie, and I didn't name Lizzie myself, but Lizzie the Spec Miata came from a man named Fergus, and Fergus named her after Elizabeth Hurley, which I'm too young to know any Elizabeth Hurley references, but Miss Lizzie, here she is in all her glory. She was Sunbelt Rental green, and I love this color. I wish Sunbelt Rentals would sponsor me because all my cars are this color now. But that was the first car. My mom's car had a less pretty name. His name was Chuck. This is Chuck the Miata. Chuck was very rusty. Chuck was from the East Coast. Chuck was very dirty. Chuck was not very well taken care of. But yes, Chuck was dependable. Chuck never broke. This car had like bushings falling out of the suspension. This car had like the wrong size sway bar on it, just like glued on there. And this car never broke. I don't know. There was something with this car, but it was amazing. We loved Chuck. It was named Chuck because the previous owner's name was Chuck, and it had the sticker on the car for a long time. But Mom and Chuck. And then now my newest Spec Miata, which this Lizzie and the car you've seen in most of the photos, the white and green car, this car's name is Maisie. The previous owner, Mike, sold it to me after Lizzie. My first car, Lizzie, I did wreck it. It got fixed. It was fixable, but it wasn't as quick and it wasn't as reliable as a proper Spec Miata is. There's a couple of things about it that weren't quite right. A couple of suspension things, a couple electronic things. And so upgrading to just a better platform seemed like the right option. This car has a much safer roll cage in it. And after putting your car on the roof, you know that the importance of a roll cage is really important. And so Maisie is a little bit of Lizzie and a little bit of its previous owner, Mike. And so that's why we call her Maisie. All the Miatas have names. We also have a streetcar Miata. Her name is Rachel. We have a lot of Miatas. The parts cars don't have names because you don't name the animals that you want to eat. Like, I'm just gonna say that. The parts car that's in many pieces. We had chickens for a while. Didn't name the chickens. Yeah. Oh yes, I'd love to. Oh, okay. I'll have to see her. Yeah, it's good to know what gender your car is first. Chuck was the only boy Miata we've had. I know that sounds crazy. You're like, you're naming your cars. We'll have.
You've been about 19 months of racing.
Yeah,
So
roughly.
in that 19 months, what do you think your investment has been as far as the cost of your vehicles, your fuel, your travel, all of that?
So I love to say Spec Miata is the most cheap racing platform that you can get into, which it definitely is if you want a spec racing class, which it's Spec Miata because all the cars are roughly the same, which makes it much focused on the driver. A decent Spec Miata, if you get a good deal, I got a really good deal on my first car, was $10,000. And so if you're looking at a decent car, it's 10 to 15 first investment in your car. And that's if it doesn't need any upgrades. My car needed a new radiator, which was like $400. my mom's car needed new suspension work, which we ended up selling it for the same price we bought it for. So we got our money back out of it. There's always someone who wants to race Spec Miata. So you're protecting your investment really, as long as you don't wreck it or damage it. I believe the cost to repair my car after I crashed was about $5,000. So my initial car, I had $15,000 into it. A race built Spec Miata engine, if your car doesn't come with it, is about $5,000 to $8,000, depending on what kind of engine you want. And since it's a spec engine, we can't outbore them. We can't stroke them to make them faster. You can't put special cams in them or anything, but they do flow test the heads. And so we watch how the air flows through the engine. And there's some heads from Mazda that are better than others. Even though they're all cast aluminum, they're all the same from Mazda, they're all stock, some are better than others. And so it's really a guessing game to find out if your car has a good engine or has good electronic parts on it. My gear, I think I bought my suit used on eBay, so it was like $300. New racing suits are usually $500 to $800. My helmet was $800 plus the radio kit, so about $1,000 for radio and helmet. Hans device is expensive, but never drive without a Hans device. That's the neck brace that you see in this photo. It goes underneath your harnesses and it makes sure that you do not strain your neck or your spine in any way. If Dale Earnhardt was wearing one of those, he probably would have lived. That's what they say. Safety advised. And then brake pads, rotors, stuff we go through a lot, gasoline, oil. It really just depends on what kind of oil and like brake pads you use. You can use cheaper stuff. We ended up changing it so often. We change it about every 2 weekends, which is like 6 days of driving. It doesn't really matter what kind of oil you use because it all wears out so quickly. The nice oils versus the cheap oils. Gasoline, Spec Miatas don't use race fuel, so it's not expensive. You can use regular fuel from any pump. We use premium, which is 92, I believe. And get it from any one gas station. Yes, Dad. Yep. $1,500 a weekend. Yes, if you buy new tires. Tires are the most expensive cost for us every weekend. They are $1,000 a set. And that is for Toyo RRs. That is our spec tire that we are required to run. Toyo RRs are a good tire because the other option of tires is Hoosier tires. Hoosier tires are the same price, but they last half as long. So we love our Toyo RRs. They last a good amount of time, about 10 to 12 heat cycles, which is.
We were out there the weekend, you and your mom, second, third.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, hopefully we'll be back again in the fall for the Invitational again. And that was my first time racing at the Invitational. It was a very fun event. I definitely recommend. It was my mom's first race, which was a really fun race for her.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you ever done any public speaking before?
I have done a podcast before, but other than my podcast with Avance, which if you know what Avance is, it's a car club here on the West Coast. I've done my Avance podcast, which I did earlier in the winter. But other than that, no.
Different sitting in front of the face is scary.
Yeah.
Than just a microphone, correct?
Yeah. It was all on the computer too, and it was like kind of over a Zoom meeting. So it's just like I was talking to my computer, but I love talking to people, real people in the room. I love hearing the feedback and the questions, and that was really the highlight of this presentation. I love answering questions. It was fun.
Amazing job.
Thank you.
Amazing